It's amazing how many people will come to me and I'll say, well, where do you guys see your future? Once the kids are gone, what do you guys want? Oh, I don't know. We haven't really talked about that. Or I know what I want, but I don't know what they want. And that's really such an important conversation to be having with your partner, because if they want to sell everything and get a motorhome and drive down the coast of California, and you're thinking of buying a cabin in the mountains, well, maybe the futures aren't quite as aligned as you would have thought, because we're so focused on what's happening right now. Build the family, build the house, build the this. But what happens when all that's done? Are you guys still aligned?
Welcome back to the Divorce Circle. I'm your host, Sabeena Bubber. This is the place where real stories, expert insights, and empowered conversations help you navigate life's transitions with clarity, confidence, and compassion. Today, I'd like to welcome Cindy Stibbard. Cindy Stibbard is a relationship advisor and certified relationship divorce coach who works with high-functioning men and women stuck in relationship limbo, questioning whether to stay in a long-term marriage or to move on. She is the creator of the Relationship Audit, a data-driven, structured relationship diagnostic designed for the partner asking, should I stay or should I go? The audit provides clear, objective insight into the true health of a relationship and where the individual stands within it, serving as the entry point to Cindy's advisory work. Known for her client-grounded and deeply human approach, Cindy helps navigate one of the most consequential decisions of their lives with clarity, integrity, and intention before emotion, fear, or the legal system takes over. Whether you're single, dating, in a relationship, or coming out of one, this conversation will give you clarity, perspective, and a whole new lens on your emotional patterns and relational habits. Cindy, thank you so much for joining us today. I wanted to ask you, for listeners that are new to your work, tell us about the Relationship Audit and what it is.
Yes, that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. So essentially, let me back up a little bit in terms of why I created the Relationship Audit. So I've worked for years with people who are stuck in that gray space of questioning their relationship. Should I stay or should I go, right? That famous question. So after years of working with people really stuck, talking through it, worked with therapists, people are still contemplating this question. Age-old question for months, years. And so I decided to really look at what were the patterns that I was seeing in people that came to me. What was constantly showing up? What were they constantly questioning about their relationship? But how could we identify where the relationship was breaking down to the point where it would help them make a more informed decision? So I created, after over a year of work on research and relationship research and working with people, I made an assessment, like a human-made, it's not an AI assessment, that really focuses on assessing the 12 core areas of a relationship's health to really get a sense of where you're at in this relationship, first of all, because it does grade you from an A to an F, and then what's going on inside the relationship. Where are the cracks actually existing? Where are things falling apart or breaking down? Where could you work on it if you really wanted to? Because I think a lot of times people go to therapy and there's so much, there's a tsunami of things to work on that they don't really know where to start. Mm-hmm. So the audit is designed to really pinpoint where those 3 weakest areas are and your strengths. What are the 3 strengths that you have as to why you're still together? And then it gives you a sense of, is this relationship rebuildable? Can I rebuild connection in any way? Or are these results giving me the permission I need, because I needed to see it in black and white data to make a different decision? And so what it's doing is it's really just crystallizing a lot of the way that people are feeling and putting it into data format. And people love that. It's like your report card in school, right? I mean, maybe you didn't love it, but a lot of people love to see how am I doing? Give me a score. Can I improve? And if so, let me know how. And if I can't, and let me decide what to do with that. Does that make sense?
It does. So was there a personal experience or a recurring pattern that you were seeing in your own life that made you think, oh, people really need this program?
It was the work that I was doing, because I felt there was a roadblock for me trying to help them get that clarity, because you really can't get the clarity as much as you want by just talking through it. It's almost like you need to see it in data. answers. Like, give me a score. Where am I falling apart? And when you see, let's say, communication is one of those things where people say you need to have in a relationship, and you do. And when you realize, wow, we are a 2 out of 12 on our communication, this is not good, and why, and what that looks like. And so I think what it's done is it's allowed me to pinpoint those areas better for people, give them the clarity that they need, but it's really hard to talk through it. And they're usually already doing that in therapy. I'm not a therapist, but I'm there to really help them get clear on where is your relationship really at from your perspective, not your partner's, because theirs is going to be different. They're experiencing the same relationship, but very differently than you. And then what does this mean for you? Where can you improve? Do you even want to improve at this point? Or is it time to think of something else?
And so at what point do you recommend? Is it when people are in crisis that they come to you, or when they're just at that state of indecision, or they're going to couples therapy and they just need more assistance? When would you recommend is a right time for people to consider that kind of audit on their relationship?
I think anytime. I mean, anytime where you're actually questioning it. Because if you're lying there in bed at night and you're looking at your partner and you think, like, I wonder, like, is this really all there is? Because it is going to give you a sense of relational health. You know, from A to an F, the A's exist, but not for everyone. We want to be able to be focused on, let's get a good B relationship. You know, every relationship should be about a B grade, meaning there's always room for improvement, but it's good. Like, I want to say good enough, but it's good. It's sustainable. You're in love. You know you want to be with this person. And it just also allows you to validate those feelings. But if you're questioning at all and you want to learn how to make this better, the audit also pinpoints those areas. You know, not only do I decide to stay or go, but could I improve this?
What do you believe people misunderstand the most about their relationships and the repeating patterns that occur within those relationships?
Misunderstanding is huge. And I think it's like our own expectations in a relationship are our biggest areas of disappointment, right? What I expect you to do is maybe not what I would do. And so I think we project those onto our partner instead of really allowing ourselves to hear from their perspective, because we spend so much time as individuals in this relationship, right? And experiencing from how I experience it. And I need you to know my experience, but so much we don't step back and listen to our partner. You know, how are you feeling without getting defensive, without getting personal, without taking it on as an attack or taking it personal, to be able to just sit and say, you know what, like, I hear what you're saying and I can see how that would have hurt you. We don't do that. And so as much as we should, it's really about separating yourself from your partner's experience, to know that even though you didn't mean something or it didn't land for you like that, or you didn't feel the same way, it doesn't mean that the way that they feel is wrong. It's really about how can you hold space for that person's experience and then work through it to understand it from their point of view. But we're talking like empathy here, right? And understanding, which takes skill. You got to work on that. It doesn't just come naturally.
But if you're at a 2 out of 12 on a communication level, and some of that is, shall we say, a male-female thing where maybe men are not used to communicating their emotions, and women want to know more about what they're feeling and why this is going on, does that make it more difficult to be compassionate when one party is not really able to share how they feel or even connect with their own feelings?
It does. I mean, communication is a big thing, but it is always how we approach our partner, because it does take two, right? The tango. So how are you approaching your partner when it comes to understanding their feelings? Are you saying, well, how is it that you feel? Like, are you coming across with anger and energy? Or are you trying to understand and knowing that their limited vocabulary or whatever, narrative they have because they haven't been taught? Can you see through the lines and feel like, okay, it must be you feel like this? Because we can also bring out a lot of that in our partner if we know how to communicate well. Because I see a lot of this too, as couples will come, or not couples, but individuals, our communication is terrible, so now we're going to therapy about it. But to me, and a lot of therapists will call me wrong on this, but I think communication skills start individually. You need to learn how to communicate yourself before the two of you can solve your communication issues. Because if I'm open and agreeable to you, but you're resistant and defensive, we're not getting there. So this resistant and defensive person needs to understand why they're being resistant and defensive and learn how to also calmly hold space for each other. Then we can come and work on our communication. But it's really, to me, very, very individual. And that's why you see a lot of couples that don't get very far in therapy. It's a dumping ground for one person who has all the vocabulary and the feelings, and the other person sitting there trying to take it, and they haven't been taught how to identify their own. So that's where I see the roadblock. But it is about how you're approaching your partner. Can we get to a place where I can start to understand you a bit more without taking offense to it?
And for the person that's resistant and defending and closed off, is it because they, is there a place where they need to identify where their fear, anger, and everything else occurs within themselves in order to release that and become more open? Because they've become resistant and defendant at some point outside of the relationship that they've brought into the relationship. Would that be fair to say?
So fair, and that's definitely a therapist's area.
Yeah.
To work on those skills so that they can start to communicate better. Because you're right, like it is about patterns. Like, how did I grow up? How did my parents talk to each other? How did we talk to each other as siblings? Because how we are modeled communication is really what sticks with us later. And if we don't have those skills, because communication is really a skill, it's not something we were born with. But we can learn how to communicate better, though, as long as we're open to learning that. And so when you go in knowing, listen, like, I'm terrible. I get defensive. Like, I get my back up. I don't know why. I don't know why everything she says or he says, I just want to protect myself, because this is where it comes from, right? It's really about, what are you protecting in you that maybe you don't feel good enough about, or maybe has been always a sore spot for you, or your confidence is low, because it comes from somewhere else. It's not typically from what your partner has said and done. It's something inside yourself. But just even having that small amount of awareness of, I don't like feeling defensive, I'd like to change that. That's where you can start. It's all it takes.
And often, when I think about that from an individual level, if you're in that place of conflict with your partner and you decide to separate and you go to that next partner, if you haven't resolved those issues within yourself, you can repeat those patterns in that next relationship and maybe the next relationship after that. Yeah. Because ultimately, in order to succeed in a partnership, you have to be aligned within yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I do see that all the time too, where we are looking for a better partner because we think that's going to make us happier, when the same patterns continue to show up if you haven't done the work. And I see that often on typically the person who, and this is not for everyone, but the person who is left in a marriage seems to feel like they don't have any work to do. It was the one that, I'm the victim, they left me, it was they have the problem, and I'm just going to find someone else to fill that spot because my heart is broken and I want to move on, and I can't believe I was left, because it leaves a hole in yourself. Your self-respect, you feel rejected, and that person typically does less work than at the beginning than the one who left the relationship. And so what happens is the patterns repeat because you just fill the gap with someone else, and then it continues. Because a lot of times when a relationship ends, the person who's leaving is usually because something's not right with the other person that they're refusing to see. The changes that you've repeatedly asked them to make, and they're just not coming to the table, or they don't need therapy, right? I don't need therapy. Maybe you do. You're the unhappy one. And so with that type of person who's really sort of restricted in their desire for growth, just continues to repeat the pattern. I mean, not that we both don't on each side. I think that we do need to do work on ourselves, but that's what I typically see is that pattern repeating.
I think that anybody going through a separation or divorce or even conflict in their marriage, that it all starts individually before you can come together as a couple. Yeah. And even if you've gone through a divorce, both parties should take the time to work on themselves before entering into new relationships.
Yes.
So that they can ensure the success of that next relationship. So let's walk through the structure. Let's go back to the relationship audit.
Yeah.
Walk us through the structure of it. How do you assess these 12 steps with your clients?
So when I first developed it, I was really doing it in person sessions where we would walk through the assessment together. But since then, I've created it to be an online digital assessment. It is done 30 or 40 minutes online. It's very easy to do. It does take time and thought, and you're assessing your experience in each of the 12 core areas. So let's start with values. Where are the two of you aligned? Are you aligned on your terms of your values? And are you living out those values day to day? And this is a basic, bare minimum place where we like to start, because it really shows us the foundation of our relationship. Do you value family? Well, I value money and success. Do you value communication? I value trust and honesty. And so you get to sort of see where you're at to start. And so the questions are designed for you to rate how much this is going on, or how much you're experiencing this from your point of view in your relationship itself. From this never happens to it always happens, and then the little incremental steps in between. Because the incremental steps will be able to diagnose how healthy this section of the relationship is, or how unhealthy, and really pinpoint with a fine-tooth comb, where things are falling apart. And that when it comes to communication, when it comes to conflict resolution, it comes to physical intimacy and sex, comes to parenting and finances and long-term vision of your life. It's amazing how many people will come to me and I'll say, well, where do you guys see your future? Once the kids are gone, what do you guys want? Oh, I don't know. We haven't really talked about that. Or I know what I want, but I don't know what they want. And that's really such an important conversation to be having with your partner, because if they want to sell everything and get a motorhome and drive down the coast of California, and you're thinking of buying a cabin in the mountains, well, maybe the futures aren't quite as aligned as you would have thought, because we're so focused on what's happening right now. Build the family, build the house, build the this. But what happens when all that's done? Are you guys still aligned? So the questions are really designed to be super clear for you and your experience, what's going on in the relationship. And then it scores it based on the calculations. And there's some automatic downgrades that I've included, where if there's massive breaches of trust or infidelity or any level of verbal or emotional abuse happening in a relationship, it will automatically score you on a lower level, because these are typical deal breakers.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that some people aren't really aligned with even what their own values are?
I think the people that come to me more so are, because they have done the work, they've been doing the work, they're struggling with the relationship and questioning where it's going in the future. So the most of the people that come to me have done that work. They at least have that sense of where they're at, but they don't have a sense of where their partner's at.
So how would you say, when would somebody know when to do an audit? Is that just when they know that you? I think you already answered that question, where it was when they realize that something needs to be assessed.
At any point when you're sort of questioning, is this the person I'm going to be with forever? Like, are we really truly aligned? Is this what's going on here? Because I feel that even when you're at that point where I feel like something's missing, but I don't quite know what it is, because the audit will also help you really pinpoint what that is for you, because it will break it down into sections. So all the sections might be great, and I do see this often with people who are struggling. Maybe their parenting section is awesome because they're really good co-parents. Their finances are solid, but they have no intimacy. And so everything else is good, but that piece alone. And you think, well, is that piece enough to end a marriage? Well, for some people it is. Some people need that. Some people want to be able to be physically intimate with the person that they're supposed to be in love with forever. Mm-hmm. And that's important. And it doesn't matter if that's 10% and everything else is great. If that part really matters to you, then that's really significant. And if you know that that's the part that's struggling, what can I do to see if I can bring that piece on track so that I can be happier here? So just there alone of questioning that something might be missing. And then, of course, I have the people who come to me after years of therapy. We're not getting anywhere. We have spent so much time, so much money, and I'm still not clear. Because I've been in tons of therapy. I think you have too. It's not really about finding the answers in there. Your therapist isn't going to say, well, they could, but most of the time they don't. You know what? This marriage is over. It's time to go. Yeah. And I can say that better, especially based on their responses in the audit. If the relationship is so off track that it's giving you we're in crisis or it's time to part ways, it's not me telling you this, it's your own answers. You've brought this information that has expressed how you're experiencing the relationship. This is real. This is your truth. So now what are we going to do with it? So anywhere in between, I think, is a great place to be, whether you want to improve or whether you want to question or get clarity.
And if you're beyond divorce, because not everybody is going through a divorce. So if you're at that point of divorce and you know that you're going to break it, but then say a few years later, you're in that next relationship and you maybe see some repeating patterns, that might be a good time to do a relationship audit as well. Would you not think so? It's not just that primary marriage.
Yes.
It could be that next relationship post-divorce where you're like, oh, is this the one? But then you're questioning it. And life changes. You've been with one person for 20 years and you're trying to adjust into a new relationship, and it could be something that could bring you closer together.
So
correct?
True. Yes, so true. And I do have people that come to me and they each do an audit separately, and then they take their results together. Say, here's where I'm struggling. Here's where I'm struggling. Can we work on this? And then, yes, I mean, if you're single and you're entering another relationship and that's big and you're wondering if this is right and you want to make sure that you're not repeating the same patterns, it's a perfect opportunity. I just had actually 3 women in this past week come to me for that same reason. They've been divorced, they've been single for a long time, now they're in a new relationship, the relationship's getting serious, and they're starting to see, like, is this a red flag? Am I seeing this right? Like, what am I seeing, and is it real? Because what it does is it just really highlights your own truth and your own experience. And a lot of times I believe too that couples wait too long to go get the help that they need, which is why they have been in therapy for so long. They wait until you're hitting rock bottom, where I think that a new relationship after divorce is especially a great place to start again. A clean slate. Let's start therapy and doing the work together right away. Why not? Do it while things are working so that you understand each other more deeply, and it's not this dumping ground in therapy. Because I do work with a lot of men, more so men than women now, and men are resistant to therapy because they just feel like ganged up on in there. It's like a courtroom. Or I go in there with my wife and she has this laundry list of things ways that I haven't shown up for her for years and years. And they are so overwhelmed and they feel so attacked that it's not very effective for them. And in fact, could have a detriment on the relationship.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think having that at the beginning of a relationship, doing that work at the beginning, if you want that relationship to succeed, the best thing to do is start with open communication, to understand your values, to understand how you communicate so that when you have a moment where you're shut down, that it doesn't automatically lead to conflict. And it's trying to break down those walls and figure out where that's coming from and not to repeat the patterns that you did from your past. Because we don't necessarily know how to create new patterns. We only know what we know from our past. So we may repeat the same behaviors again.
And naturally, right? Because it's just what we know. If we haven't tried anything new or learned anything new, or even been with someone else who brings their own patterns to us, then we don't know how we're going to be. And I don't want anyone to feel bad for not knowing these things. Like, we're not born this way. It's all about skill. And you don't feel like you're not a failure for not knowing how to communicate. You're not a failure for getting defensive or for shutting down. But these are things that we are learning how to be better in relationship, and take that as just growth. It's all about not being perfect, but one little step every day towards progress is really what you want. And I do say that to a lot of people who come to me and say, yeah, and I guess he's changing now, but it's not good enough. But is he on the path to actually making the changes? Because he's not going to change overnight. It's not happening like this, right?
Yeah.
It took 50 some odd years for him to become who he is. He's trying to adjust for you and for the relationship, because just small steps of progress shows he cares enough to try. So no, you don't have to stay with him forever if it doesn't get to the point where you want it to, but at least give it a chance to see what his capacity is. Clearly, he's willing to be able to come to the table and start to make changes. I mean, even women too. But let's see how long, what his capacity is like. Can these changes actually sustain us and bring us closer together? And can I get to a point where like, you know what, I can live with this. Might not be perfect, but I can live with this.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, now you will just have more information about the fact that he's doing the work, but is just not going to meet your needs as much as you need. And it's okay to say,
it's not enough.
It's not enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the biggest aha moments that you've seen people have during this process of the relationship audit?
Being in your own control. So many of us leave our autonomy and decisions to the other person. They come to me and say, well, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to change that person. You don't. You are 100% responsible for your choices. You are not stuck. You're choosing to stay here. So first of all, let's talk about why are you choosing to stay? And usually it's because they're scared. I don't want to leave the kids, the finances, just the stigma, or all of those reasons. And just knowing that, giving them more of that agency over your own life, because we're so willing to like put the hands up and be like, I don't know how to fix this. Like, it's not all my fault. And no, it isn't. But you are in the driver's seat now. Like, you get to decide based on how your partner is showing up or not, what you're going to do about it. We can't place all the onus on like, well, if they don't change, then this is not going to work. Okay, you're right. But you have to decide where you're at. They're not going anywhere. They're fine with how this is, right? And they've also told that to you. But you get to see now what you want. And I think that's the biggest piece, is owning that part, because owning that part comes with layers, right? If I own that I'm not happy and that I am in this relationship by my choice and I'm stuck, then I look like the failure. I look like the villain. Or if I leave, then I'm the bad person that's ruined the relationship. But really, the power is in your hands with how you handle that. What do you want for your kids? What do you want for your future? What do you want for your partner? Because you also staying in a relationship that you're not happy with is also really unfair to your partner. Mm-hmm. Would you want to be with someone who is like halfway out the door already? He doesn't really love you that much, kinda. But why would you want them there? Wouldn't you want to feel fully chosen? And so when we stay stuck to protect ourselves from all those other things, to me, you're betraying your partner bigger than any other betrayal outside the marriage, because they're not getting the partner that they deserve. You're not showing up for them, and they're not being loved like they deserve.
Yeah. And you're modeling to your children what love looks like.
Yes.
In that way, which is maybe not what you would choose for your kids to live in the same way. Mm-hmm. So you talk about patterns, attachment styles, subconscious relationships, and how does the audit bring all of these things to life?
It really highlights the key points, which is why I broke it down into these very specific sections. So it gives you an overall score, but then by highlighting each of the individual areas, you can see where you're thriving, where you are good, where things are working, and then where things are not. So it also shows like how that would feel in a relationship, what's showing up for you. And normally when people are doing the audit, they're like, yeah, that's happening. Yep, that's happening too. Yep, that's exactly how I'm feeling. So it can allow you to name your experience as well, instead of knowing it's wrong, but not really being able to identify it.
So one of the things I like about your work is that you really bring accountability into the conversation without adding shame.
Yeah.
How do people sit with their own responsibility in the relationship without feeling guilt?
Well, I don't think we can. I think guilt is inevitable. We're always going to feel guilty no matter what, and I think that we just have to feel guilty and make the decisions that we need to make, not knowing that it's not either or. Mm-hmm. Because even if we're making the right decision, even if we know this person's not right for us, we still feel guilty about it. And we still feel guilty for what we're doing to the children or the family or the friends. And by the time I think most people get to me, it's not easy, the work that we do, because the way that I, advise in relationships, I am very confronting. I am very honest. I am very raw, and it's hard to hear the truth sometimes, but I am that person that is going to tell you the truth because I care and I need you to see it. And usually it's not easy to hear, but by the time they come to me, they're ready to hear it. They just needed to hear it. And it's very loving and supportive. I mean, I'm a tough love, but firm but fair kind of advisor in a way, that I need you to see this because it's good for you to see this, and I'm here to support you through coming to face the truth of what that is and what that looks like for you. And I'm holding your hand through it. I'm not leaving you high and dry of here you go, here's your truth, good luck. It's now, what do you want? Because everyone's timeline is also different, right? We talk about divorce and we get this fear that, oh my gosh, if I say divorce, or if I start thinking about it, or if I do the audit, it means I have to get divorced. Well, no, you don't. You don't have to do anything. And you don't have to get divorced tomorrow if you want to get divorced. It doesn't have to even be in 6 months from now. It could be 5 years from now. It could be 10. We don't know. Your timeline is so yours. And my job is to help you figure out what that timeline is, because not every time is the best time.
Yeah.
There's going to be a time that's better than others. There's not a perfect time ever, but there is going to be a time that it makes more sense. And, for example, I've had women come to me and they're struggling and they have got newborn babies and they want to leave their marriage. But these marriages, mind you, are not abusive or in any kind. They're just really struggling with a one-sided domestic partnership where she's carrying all the weight. She's also dealing with hormones and, having to sacrifice her career. There's so many things going on. Divorce might not be the right thing for you at this time, even though you might think that it is because you're so unhappy and alone and feeling disconnected from your partner. And your partnership might not be right for you, but let's think about this baby first of all right now, because the moment you do make a big decision like that, you are not giving up, but you're sharing this child with your partner, and you may not be living together. So are you ready to do that at this stage of life for that baby? What does that mean for them? And sometimes it's not the right time. Sometimes we need to wait until they're a little bit older, or you get yourself back at work. Sometimes it means the kids graduate. It really, really depends on when's the right time for each person. Because I rip the Band-Aid off, but let's rip this Band-Aid off and then let's make a plan. Because what does this really realistically look like that's best for you and the kids and the overall family? Because even though your marriage is ending, the relationships are not. So how do you want these relationships to go from here?
What are some common blind spots that you see when it comes to that surprise people?
When it comes to getting a divorce?
No, when it comes to the process of the relationship audit. So what are some blind spots that people see when they're uncovering all those things in their different styles of being in the relationship?
I think the blind spots are sometimes they didn't see it as bad as it is, because we can put our blinders on. We're often drawn back into nostalgia and guilt, or you wake up and being like, well, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Is it get any better out there? I heard dating is a nightmare, and I've heard girlfriends that are single and I don't want to be that person. And so we bring ourselves back to that comfort where we're protected, right? Our ego is so scared to face that truth, but the audit has no choice but to just assess you based on what you tell it. And so that truth sometimes can be really hard for people. They know it's not good, but sometimes they don't realize how, I wouldn't say bad it is, how broken it's become until it highlights those areas for them.
Yeah. Have you seen it where the audit actually helps improve a relationship and it brings people closer together and save that relationship from what they thought was heading towards divorce?
Yes. And that's, so what happens is when people do the audit, when you get a certain score, you can either be funneled into, I work with people I call the relationship reboot. And what we do with that is we look at the 3 lowest areas of the audit and for the next however many weeks we've chosen, we're going to focus on really seeing what we can do to rebuild these 3 things. Because I know your therapist is going to be great with you processing the feelings and all the things you have, but I want to give you strategies to see if you can close the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Because you think you want a divorce, maybe, but you're not ready. You're wondering, have I done everything there is to do? And there's always something to do, but maybe this is the place that we start to really see, can I make any improvements in these areas? Because I really want to give it like one last shot. And so by the end of working on those 3 areas together with strategies, with tools, with mindset shifts, with me giving them actual words to say in certain conversations and situations, if they can make any improvement, then it gives you more information about what you're going to do with that. If they can't, then that's also information. This is not working. I actually can't close the gap. I thought I could. I thought we could improve. I thought things could get better, but we can't. But for some people, they can, and they can get to a place where, you know what? Now that we're having these conversations that we've never had, we're getting back on track. Or I'm doing things differently that I need to be doing, and it's changing things. And so it really does, the beauty of the audit is it really does open it up to, can we fix and reconnect and repair? Or do I need to think about something else? So it's really the whole spectrum in that way.
Can you give us an example of a success story? Obviously, it's going to be anonymous, but where somebody's audit completely changed their relationship and made it so much better.
Yes. Yeah. So I had this one woman, she was in the Midwest in the States, and she did the audit, and she realized that a lot of what she was struggling with in her relationship was specifically coming from her expectations of her partner, her childhood patterning that didn't let her communicate to a certain degree, and it highlighted her experience, because what the audit does is you're not judging your partner, it's judging you. What are you doing in this relationship that's contributing to how you're feeling? And so by pointing that out, I remember her saying, because we talk about communication and, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, like, is there contempt? Is there sarcasm? Is there defensiveness? Is there shutting down? And she's like, I do all of those things. And I need to stop doing those things because my husband is basically like wanting to communicate with me and I don't want to do it. And so we started working on, first of all, help your therapist understand where that's coming from. And then what are some strategies you can put in place to help you rebuild that with him? Because she had a lot of stuff in the past. She had a very disordered childhood that really contributed to how much armor she was wearing. She was so defensive with anything that was brought up to her. And her poor husband couldn't say anything without it just causing a war. And this process allowed her to realize that, oh my gosh, it is more me. It's me. I need to change these things. And so as she did, she became more confident in herself. She's like, this is helping me with my kids. This is helping me like with other people that I find difficult, because I've lost a lot of friendships over the years. And I'm wondering, like, is it because of the way that I was communicating with them? So she stands out because she was also this vision of taking ownership for herself. She had that epiphany of that if I change, maybe this can change. And so we started there, and it did. They're still together now. They're working on it. They're growing. She's got a lot to do, but she's realizing that it's not him, that it was more her, and that the more she allowed him in, the more conversations and the connection they could have.
So in order to have a different outcome, she had to change who she was showing up as.
Yeah, exactly.
That's huge. That's huge. Thank you. How can this program help people who are dating again in terms of how they approach dating after divorcing from very long-term relationships? So they're ending a 20, 30-year marriage and they're entering the dating scene. And the dating scene these days are nothing like they were 20, 30 years ago. How do they use the relationship audit to help them in the dating scene and to find success in it?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I'm not a dating coach, but as you know, experienced my fair share of dating. I think the audit also helps myself as I was building it and learning it while I was actually dating. I spent 2 years in my single life building this audit, really based on, the premise of what happens in a relationship, but what would you want in a relationship? Like, if I was to start all over again, what would I need to really look at to build? Starting from core values, starting from how do you communicate, even boundaries, like honesty. Where's your level, your line when it comes to infidelity? Like, what does that mean and look like for you? And so I think this also allows you to get a sense of what's important to me, and really where are my non-negotiables in a relationship, because it's not the same for everyone. And then being able to cultivate that as you're searching for. I always don't like looking, because I feel like you're calling it in. As soon as you're working on yourself, you're really calling in that new person who's going to be more aligned with what you're looking for. And we can all write on paper and say like, oh, I want the guy tall, and he's got to be like, muscular and brown hair and, drives a nice car. But like when you look at relationship, how does your heart feel in it? How do you feel at home? And this is the biggest thing, is bringing it back to feeling at peace. Like the person you're with should make you exhale. Really, that's how it feels to know that you're with the right person. When you kind of have your back up, or you feel tense, or you're unsure, or your thoughts are spinning, then maybe there's something here that's not aligned with you. But what the audit can do is it can allow you to know what is important for me. Where are the gaps in myself that I need to also know that I got to bring a better game to the table if I want a better partner. Because like that, you probably see it a million times on Instagram, like we're only going to meet our partner where we've met ourselves. So if we haven't done that work on ourselves, how can we have the partner that we're dreaming of? Because we're not ready for them.
Yeah, well, we definitely, I do see the pattern where people go from their divorce right into the dating scene and immediately have a new partner without really taking that time to be in their single era and to actually take the time to work on themselves. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who left the relationship, both people need to do the work. Yeah. Right.
And I'm guilty of that. I did that out of my marriage right into another relationship. And I think I was, and so was he at the time, because he was fresh out of a relationship too. I can't bring old patterns to this. And I don't know what those are necessarily, but I know I don't want to repeat the past. And so we went to therapy right away, right at the beginning. He started his own, I had my own already. And then we started going together. And because it was so fresh, I think we started probably 2 years into dating. It was actually really connective. Like we actually had a really good time in there. It was like going on a date. We'd walk out of there and we'd be excited about what we're learning, and we felt closer. And when you can do that with someone, when someone's really willing to be open and vulnerable with you in therapy, I mean, you've got something that you can build on there. And it's quite connective. It's very intimate. It's it's really a great experience to be able to have with your partner. So doing that right away is so important.
So I'm trying to visualize what that would look like when you're in there, because usually the couples therapist is there to manage the conflict. And obviously there's no conflict. So where do the conversations go in there? Is that, does that therapist lead the conversation, or does somebody start the conversation with, I had this problem this week? Where does that, I'm curious. Yeah. Share that with me.
Yeah. It was pretty powerful, because I'm also doing it in my current relationship, because that person that I started therapy with, he passed away. You know the story, but your listeners may not. So that relationship wasn't destined to end, but God ended it for us. I spent 2 years single and really working on myself before I was ready to get into another relationship, which I'm in now. And I, presented going to therapy together. He was open to it. And I think what it does is it allows you to just start to pinpoint the small things that are happening at the beginning. Those small things, those disagreements, those disconnections, those curiosities that at the beginning of relationships we sweep under the rug, thinking, that'll work itself out, that will be fine. But this is where you get to actually let's put it on the table. I didn't like how this made me feel and why. And not only just solving the problem, but being in a situation where you can be heard. You can share and you can be heard, and it's almost mediated, and someone's there to teach you the skills, because your other person, your new partner, might not necessarily have the skills yet, or you don't. And this allows you that container to start to learn those things and open up. even if it's small, because it always starts with, well, like, you don't put the dishes in the dishwasher properly, right?
You leave the toilet seat up.
Yeah, you leave the toilet. Well, so what does that mean? Like, let's talk about that deeper. What does that mean for you?
Yeah.
Because it's not about that. So let's go there,
Going back to the relationship audit, does it involve journaling, coaching? What can people expect when they're doing the program?
So the audit is single on its own. People can do the audit without continuing and working with me. If they decide that they do want to work with me, I do have different options. One is to look at what the audit results are, and if they were high on the spectrum, let's work on how you can rebuild the lowest areas. If they were low, what does that mean for you? Like, now we're going down the decision pathway. And is this a decision that, first of all, you're ready to make? And if not, that's where I also work together with people. One is, I'm still not sure, but I need some advisory along the way so I can really make sure. And other people are, I need to make this decision, but how? How do I do it? Like, what do I say? When do I have the conversation? Like, what is involved in this process? So that's really how I take the relationship audit to the next level for people who, now I have these results. It gave me the clarity I needed. What do I do with it from here? And so what that looks like is, I don't do modules. You're not going to get lesson plans or any of that. And even journaling and thought, we do a lot of thought processing, but it depends on the person, what they want. But we do weekly advisory calls, and then my clients have access via private messaging to me in between. And the reason I do it this way is because you can't talk to your therapist usually in the moments that you need it most. So by the time you get to the next session, you're like, oh yeah, what happened again? Like, why was I so mad? Or it's almost in the moment, you need that support. So that's what I'm offering my clients at the time. Yeah. And so then we get to clarity, and I set them up to how to make the next steps, what those look like, who you might need to talk to next beyond me, and just set them up, because most people who are deciding to divorce don't have a plan. They just know they want to, but they have no idea what that looks like, what that entails, the level of impact that it has, and even how to have the conversation. And it's not just one, it's quite a few little mini conversations to start to open this topic with your partner to help to mitigate, the emotional destruction that normally happens when someone says, you know what, I'm done, I just want a divorce.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't usually go very well.
No, it doesn't. Is there a particular question in the audit that helps people make that decision one way or the other, that really drives them in that direction? Or is that too much information about what's happening back there in the audit?
It is so particular and so specific for each person, because it's going to also evaluate your importance and the weight that you put on each of these areas. So back to the intimacy piece, because I do get this all the time. People will come to me and say, my marriage is good, except, we haven't been intimate in years. Okay, well, how important is that to you? So you get to show me how important is that? Well, that's like a 9 or 10, because maybe at this point too, I've been tempted outside the marriage. Maybe once, maybe twice, maybe I'm thinking about it. So obviously this is important enough to you to go in that direction. Maybe this is a deal breaker for you. Maybe this person is just your roommate and your companion, your co-parent, but they're not your romantic partner. So it is about assessing the importance of each of these things and how much of a deal breaker that is for you in this relationship. Other people are like, no, that's fine. I don't need that. But what I do need is this.
What's one belief about relationships that you wish everyone would question in their relationship?
Really how, we're showing up. Because it is about so much about us and letting go of these narratives and these expectations that we have of the other person. And I'm saying that now from a place of personal experience, now that I'm also in a new relationship and spent 2 years working on myself. There's so many things that we hold on to, or that we judge, or that we hold over our partner's head that have nothing to do with the relationship itself. You really have to bring this back to, am I just upset about A, something different, or B, am I being too critical about something that really doesn't impact our connection, but it's really about me? And so many of those small things can be avoided when you start to just let things go. Put down the sword. Open yourself up and look for them for the good qualities that they bring you, because no one is going to fill every single cup. But you have to look at, what are the cups that are important to me? And when I'm in this new relationship now, and prior to meeting him, there were certain things where I was like, well, I'm never going to be with someone who's A, B, and C. Well, he's A and B of those things, but he's so much of all of the other things that make a relationship work and how my heart feels. So I look at those A and B, and they were just superficial. Like, they were really meaningless because they had nothing to do with the person that he is and how he makes you feel. So if you look at that, really look at that in your relationship, what is the good that they're bringing to you and your life? And what good are you bringing to them? Because we all often look at what we're not getting from someone. We all just have to look at, what am I not giving? Because that's where this happens. The more you give, you'll be surprised by the more you'll get back in return.
Absolutely. I know a lot of women that swipe left on men that are under 6 feet. And that is a superficial thing. And I know a lot of men under 6 feet that are great catches.
Right?
So
yes.
I think those superficial things, like he has to be this, this, and this, are less of the things we need to pay attention to, and more about the core of who they are and what they bring to the table.
Yeah.
If you could tell every woman one thing before they start dating again, what would it be?
Really know yourself, and your limits, your boundaries. Don't settle, because I think that a lot of women, especially at our age, we can get scared. I don't want to be alone, so he's good enough. But if you're just going to pick good enough, that's all you're going to get. Keep your expectations low. But know that, am my expectations reasonable? And you don't have to settle just because you're afraid to be alone. Because any of us who've been divorced or in a relationship knows that it's far more painful to be in a relationship you want to leave than to be on your own and single. So just give it time. Trust the process. And the other thing I would say is, don't look at it like it's a nightmare. Can't believe how many women are like, oh my God, dating, the apps are crazy. It's so awful out there. Well, it is now, because this is how you're looking at it. Yeah, of course it is. I have to say that I look at meeting men as just an experience and meeting someone new. Like, let's just go and learn their story, see what they're like. There's no expectation. There's no pressure. It doesn't go anywhere past the first date. Who cares?
Yeah.
If you're dating someone every single day for the next 7 days, go have a good time.
It's like trying to find that dream job. You're not going to settle for a job that pays less or doesn't make you feel happy when you're there. Why would you do that in a relationship?
Yeah. And be okay with, this is a process.
Yeah.
Go into it with, I'm going to be excited about this. I'm going to go. I'm going to be myself. I'm going to have a good time. It's not a nightmare out there. I've met a lot of really great men on the dating apps that just weren't my men, but were great men.
Yeah.
But that's how we have to look at it. Because if we already go in as women, and a lot of us can be super judgmental, I know I am. If you already go in with, your eyes are half shut, well, you're not going to have a good experience. So just go in with an open mind and see where it takes you. That's where I would say. It's not a nightmare.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you so much for being here today. I really learned a lot from our discussion today. And I think the relationship audit sounds like a great option for people who are considering divorce and don't know if that's the way to go before they decide to throw in the towel or decide to give their relationship a breath of fresh air and start over again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy, for sharing your wisdom, your story, and the transformative power of the Relationship Audit Program. Your work reminds all of us that healing isn't just about moving on, it's about moving inwards, understanding our patterns, and rebuilding ourselves from a place of clarity and self-connection. For our listeners, if today's conversation resonated with you, or if you've been noticing patterns in your relationships that feel familiar, maybe too familiar, this might be the perfect moment to take a deeper look. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share, and leave a review. It helps us reach more people who need these conversations. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing growth. And remember, you are never alone in your journey. We'll see you next time on The Divorce Circle.